And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Wednesday, January 24th, 2024. If you'd like additional weather information on top of what I provide in this YouTube video, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. I bring this up because the Weather Service, it's across the nation. We have friends, family scattered about the country, and sometimes some interesting things are going on. I'll look at the weather map this Wednesday afternoon. We have winter weather advisories for light snow and freezing rain in the northeast. This broad area of darker gray from areas of lower New York State, Pennsylvania, southern Michigan, all the way back into the plains. Dense fog advisories, warm, moist air streaming northward over the snow cover and cold ground, creating widespread dense fog, slowing down travel by air and by car. And then here in the deep south, especially lower Mississippi Valley, heavy rainfall, as much as 6 to 10 inches of rain, resulting in some reports of flash flooding and flash flood warnings in parts of Louisiana and Mississippi up into Alabama. Here in Alaska, cold, 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 and big time snows in the Panhandle. Juneau has been hit really hard the past, 10 days. Now, this last storm here that ended the other day, 3-day snowfall total, 34.5 inches of snow is the 5th highest recorded in Juneau. A week before, the previous weekend into the following Monday, 28.3 inches of snow. So Juneau has received over 60 inches of snowfall here in like about 9 days. And to make matters worse, we got warmer air on the way with heavier rainfall heading toward the Panhandle. So we do, though, on the backside of the system that's going to come up into the Gulf, even colder air will be spreading southward from out of the interior and along the west into the southwest side of the state, and eventually coming across the eastern half of the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula as we go into the upcoming weekend. And a stormy pattern will be evolving along the Gulf Coast Friday and beyond, and we're going to see heavy snow, heavy rain, winds from the Panhandle spreading northwestward along the Gulf Coast up into south central areas here by this weekend. And we could be looking at 2 to maybe as much as 4 inches of rainfall in portions of the Panhandle in locations that already picked up a lot of snow and have a deep snowpack. But as of now, in the far north, Dead Horse eastward toward Kaktovik remain under a winter weather advisory for blowing snow and dangerously cold wind chills. You can see the blowing snow there as of early this afternoon. The air temperature 15 below, southwest winds gusting up over 25 miles an hour. And that there is the moon, the almost full moon. Full moon occurs tomorrow morning before 9 a.m. Alaska time. In Bethel, clear skies, 8 below. It's going to get even colder there, and the breeze will start to pick up this weekend. Even colder air is moving in your direction there across the southwest interior, up along the lower middle Yukon and the Kuskokwim River basins. That cold air will be driving southward, and so expect some of the coldest air of the winter to be setting up, and that's going to continue for the next several days, even into the week ahead, into next weekend, as I will show you in the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Meanwhile, Anchorage, clear skies, 3 above. There's been some patchy freezing fog in spots here in the morning hours. Of note, though, big question remains, is any of the moisture from these storms coming up into the Gulf going to pull far enough westward that could bring Anchorage heavier snowfall later this weekend and at least the first half of next week? That's a wild card, but be aware the potential exists for some heavier snowfall in the Anchorage area, especially later this weekend through the middle of next week. It's not a guarantee because much will depend upon the exact storm track of these lows and the moisture feed that is driven into them. Juneau, light rain and snow linger there, 34 degrees after I said over 60 inches of snow from 2 big storms here over the past couple of weekends. Now we have to worry about heavy rain moving in with warmer temperatures, and that looks to be the case starting Friday and through the upcoming weekend. So the full moon of January is referred to as the Wolf Moon, and that occurs tomorrow, Thursday morning at 8:54 a.m. Alaska Standard Time. Looking at the hazardous weather, we still have winter weather advisories here up along the eastern half of the Arctic coast for gusty winds creating blowing snow and dangerously cold wind chills. South, This area of special weather statement here south of the Alaska Range, the Susitna, Matanuska, as well as Copper River basins and Kenai. This is for ice buildup on the rivers and creeks, causing some of these ice dams to form and water levels then to back up and rise. And that'll be the case through the upcoming weekend. There will be other advisories, watches, warnings, things issued in regards to the storm systems that will be impacting this area in through the Panhandle coming up here at the end of this week and especially over the weekend. In the meantime, we have special weather statements here for Juneau and on up into Haines, Skagway. These areas here will experience warming temperatures, rising snow levels, and the potential for 2 to as much as 4 inches of rain between this Friday, especially Friday night, on through early next week, which could really cause some problems. Again, if you're in these areas, it may be proactive to try and clear off your roof from the weight of that heavy snow, because it will not be good getting 4 inches of rain on top of that. Also, you have the issue of snowmelt runoff, potentially some of the drains getting clogged up. There's just a number of issues that can arise with this kind of transition back toward wet and warmer weather there. But looking at the satellite imagery, we have a little lingering weak low off of the Panhandle coast, creating still some lingering areas of light rain and snow, nothing too major now. That next push I'll show you coming up here toward the end of the week. Across the mainland, we still have high pressure extending from eastern Russia through the interior into northwest Canada. Still plenty of cold air up here. Even colder air sitting up here along the Arctic Ocean is sinking southward and will make progress across the west side into the southwest interior as we go into Friday and Saturday, and then across the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula this weekend, as a series of low pressures are going to be lifting out of the North Pacific. These waves of low pressure will just follow one after another, and a couple of these may be consolidated enough if they take a track up into Prince William Sound that could open the door for some of that heavier snow to push back into Anchorage. So stay tuned to later forecasts, but definitely areas of the mountains here in the eastern Kenai around Prince William Sound, the Copper River Basin are going to get blasted with heavy snow coming up here with these systems. Also the far northern end of the Panhandle where the colder air hangs on and where the elevation's a bit higher, but areas like Juneau, Sitka South will eventually just be primarily moderate to heavy rain, so that's going to be a messy situation, especially in the areas around Juneau that picked up all of the heavy snow in the past 10 days or so. So looking at the weather map this Wednesday afternoon, we have a few weaker low pressures sitting from just off the Kenai coastline to out over the lower southeastern Gulf, keeping some areas of patchy light rain, snow going across the Panhandle. Interior does have some lower cloud cover, freezing fog as the result of strong temperature inversion. A lot of sub-zero temperatures, though, where skies are clear. This ridge of high pressure pretty much remaining intact through the end of the week, and it's going to reinforce itself later this weekend into next week. So late tonight, early on Thursday morning, we still have a few weak areas of low pressure from just off the Kenai to just off of the Panhandle coast down to off of Vancouver Island. Winds are going to be picking up as we get into late Thursday and Friday along the Aleutians, as there will be weather systems sitting just south of there. But notice, here's Thursday afternoon. We still have the high pressure ridge centered over Siberia and then eastward into the northern half of the state, especially along and just south of the Brooks Range and along the Yukon River. And this pressure gradient will be increasing along the Aleutians, southwest coast. This is going to allow for that cold air to sink southward as we go through the weekend. Now here comes one of the first stronger waves of low pressure by Friday afternoon. It's going to lift northeastward. There's a secondary low here taking shape that'll swing back, pivot back up toward Prince William Sound. This low will also lift with more moisture. We have this front that's going to be pulling in milder air up in through areas of the Panhandle, causing the freezing levels and the snow lines to rise upward. So this is going to transition a lot of at least the central southern portion of the Panhandle to all rain, and then the far north will hold on to the colder air longer. And as that moisture pivots back to the north and west, it's going to throw heavy snow up here along the intercoastal mountains, the Wrangell St. Elias, on up into the Copper River Basin. All the mountains around Prince William Sound are going to get pounded with very heavy snow. Could even be blizzard conditions there, especially Thompson Pass. So coming up for morning lows, 40 degrees here, lower Panhandle, mild. In the north, 25 there around Skagway. 28 below Copper River Basin, very cold temperatures here in across the interior, 36 below over at McGrath on the other side of the Alaska Range, still a bit below zero. Anchorage Bowl. Thursday afternoon, we're going to get temperatures here in the 40s. Southern half of the Panhandle, low mid 40s. Stays below zero Copper River Basin, the other side of the Alaska Range, maybe about 5 above Anchorage Bowl. And then Friday morning, lows stay near 40. Along the southern outer southwestern portion of the Panhandle, Sitka. And as we go back in, sub-zero across southern inland interior, Copper River Basin, 40 below there at McGrath. Very cold air is sinking, beginning to sink southward down along the west side of the Alaska Range. And then temperatures Friday afternoon back up into the 40s. Could even see a 50-degree reading here easily over the weekend because warm, moist air is coming back to the north and west. Friday afternoon high still single digits around the Anchorage Bowl on up toward Talkeetna. And look at the interior here. We're going to see some temperatures at or just below 50, below 51 below Fort Yukon. That's already happened earlier this week. The cold air that's sitting here and up in the Arctic Ocean, this is all migrating southward, southwestward. It's going to be pulled south-southwestward as a result of the low pressure coming up from the North Pacific into the Gulf. So very cold temperatures. If you have any gap, that cold air flowing through any gaps in the elevation there, or you have any breeze, you're going to have dangerously cold wind chills. Daytime highs 30s, 40s below here across the eastern central interior along the Yukon River and especially south side of the Brooks Range. And then Friday morning lows, look at that, 55 below Fort Yukon, and that cold air spreading further southwestward. As I mentioned, McGrath, 40 below. As you get toward the middle Yukon, you'll start seeing some of those 40 below readings. And then for Friday afternoon, still temperatures in the 30s to 40 below here through the central eastern portion of the interior. Sub-zero along the Arctic coast as well as the Seward Peninsula, though not quite as cold, but you are going to have breezes picking up, especially along the west-southwest coast. For the southwest interior, below zero, Bethel 14 below as you go up the Yukon, Kuskokwim rivers 20s, 30s below. Temperatures slipping below freezing even into the eastern Aleutians. Highs Thursday afternoon stay below zero here in the southwest. And this is where the focus of some of the coldest air is going to set up. Much below normal temperatures are anticipated here next week and especially next weekend. Meanwhile, still get temperatures a little above freezing there, Dutch Harbor, and then for Friday morning, look at these cold temperatures beginning to build across the southwest interior, below freezing extending out there even into the eastern Aleutians, and daytime highs stay below zero here in the southwest Friday afternoon. And temperatures still near freezing, say, at Dutch Harbor. But again, winds are going to be starting to pick up out of the northwest as we go through the weekend. And that's going to draw the really cold air even further southward across the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians. So this is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, January 30th through February. To begin the month of February, some of the coldest air of the winter is expected over the western and southwest mainland, including the Alaska Peninsula. So be ready for that, an extended period of much colder weather. Meanwhile, we've had these lows spin up, bringing moisture, temperatures even still averaging a bit above normal over the southern half of the Panhandle as we enter early February. But overall, it's these systems are going to be drawing down colder air as we go through this weekend and especially through the following week. And looking at precipitation, after the initial feed of heavier above normal precipitation into these areas, we expect it to begin to pull back a little bit, maybe toward the end of next week into next weekend. And with the cold air in place here over the west and southwest mainland into the Alaska Peninsula, we'd expect cold, dry air, offshore flow, and much below normal temperatures with at times bitter, dangerously cold wind chills. So everyone prepare for some really cold some of the coldest air of the winter and just be ready because safety is a primary concern because it's important to have a good heat source and make sure that water and sewer lines are able to stay open because it will challenge some of the rural communities' infrastructure. And areas of the Panhandle could still see additional precipitation there, especially along a portion of the Panhandle into the northern Gulf Coast.